Hua Hin Beaches, where Thailand's royal coast meets the sea. Before the first fishing boats leave the shore. Before cafes open their doors and the streets begin to fill with life. Hua Hin belongs to the sea. As dawn breaks over the Gulf of Thailand, golden light slowly reaches the coastline, revealing long stretches of sand shaped by wind, waves, and time. The tide moves gently across the shore, leaving behind intricate patterns that disappear almost as quickly as they appear. For a few quiet moments, only the sound of the ocean and the calls of seabirds break the silence. To many visitors, Hua Hin is simply another beach destination. A place to relax beneath palm trees, swim in warm tropical waters, and watch spectacular sunsets. But beyond its peaceful shoreline lies a story that stretches back more than a century, a story of fishermen, kings, railways, changing tides, and a town that would become Thailand's very first royal seaside retreat. Every beach along this coastline has its own character. Some are lively and full of activity. Others remain hidden, protected by rocky headlands or shaded by ancient casuarina trees. Together, they form a coastline where history and nature continue to exist side by side. Today, we journey along the beaches of Hua Hin, not simply to admire their beauty, but to discover the stories they have quietly carried through generations. Stretching along the western shore of the Gulf of Thailand, Hua Hin lies approximately 200 kilometers south of Bangkok. At first glance, it appears to be just another tropical seaside town. Yet unlike many of Thailand's famous beach destinations, Hua Hin has never relied solely on turquoise waters or vibrant nightlife to define its identity. Instead, its greatest attraction has always been something less obvious, a unique combination of history, tradition, and a coastline that has changed remarkably little over the past century. Long before international tourism reached Thailand, Hua Hin was a small fishing village. Local families lived from the sea, launching their wooden boats before sunrise and returning with the day's catch as the afternoon tide rolled in. Life followed the rhythm of the Gulf of Thailand, where calm waters and predictable seasons shaped generations of fishermen. Everything began to change in the early 20th century. As Thailand expanded its railway network, a new line connected Bangkok with the southern provinces. Suddenly, this once remote coastline became easily accessible. Members of the Thai royal family were among the first to recognize Hua Hin's peaceful atmosphere and refreshing sea breeze. In the 1920s, King Rama VII chose Hua Hin as the location for Klai Kangwon Palace, a royal residence whose name translates as "so far from worries." That decision transformed Hua Hin forever. Unlike many beach resorts that grew rapidly around mass tourism, Hua Hin developed with a quieter character. Elegant hotels, golf courses, and seaside villas appeared gradually, while much of the original coastline remained remarkably intact. Even today, fishing boats still rest on the sand beside modern resorts, creating a rare blend of tradition and contemporary life. Geographically, Hua Hin is also unique. Facing east across the Gulf of Thailand, its beaches are sheltered from the stronger waves of the Andaman Sea on Thailand's western coast. The result is a shoreline known for gentle surf, long sandy beaches, and calm mornings, making it one of the country's most popular destinations for families, walkers, and those seeking a slower pace of travel. But the true beauty of Hua Hin is not found in a single beach. It is found in the remarkable diversity of its coastline. From lively stretches lined with cafes and horseback riders to secluded coves hidden beneath forested hills, each beach tells a different story. Some reflect the town's royal heritage. Others reveal its fishing traditions, unique ecosystems, or the enduring relationship between local communities and the sea. Today, we will travel along this coastline, exploring not only where these beaches are, but why they became places that continue to shape the identity of Hua Hin. Understanding Hua Hin's coastline. Every coastline is shaped by a story far older than the people who live beside it. The beaches of Hua Hin are no exception. To understand why this coastline looks the way it does today, we have to look beyond the sand and into the forces that have been shaping this landscape for thousands of years. Hua Hin lies along the western shore of the Gulf of Thailand, a shallow arm of the South China Sea. Unlike Thailand's Andaman coast, where the ocean crashes against dramatic cliffs and powerful waves carve the landscape, the Gulf is calmer, warmer, and more protected. This difference has shaped everything. The gentle waters allow fine sand to settle along the shoreline instead of being swept away by strong currents. Over countless centuries, waves carried tiny grains of quartz, shells, and sediment southward, gradually forming the broad beaches that define Hua Hin today. Yet the coastline is far from uniform. Rocky headlands rise from the sea at several points, interrupting long stretches of sand and creating small bays sheltered from wind and waves. These natural formations influence water movement, marine life, and even where fishing communities first chose to settle. Behind many of the beaches, another landscape begins. Casuarina forests sway with the coastal breeze, while low hills of ancient granite emerge from the otherwise gentle terrain. These rocky outcrops are among the oldest geological features in the region, standing as silent witnesses to millions of years of change. The rhythm of life here is also guided by the seasons. Between November and February, cooler, drier air arrives with the northeast monsoon, bringing clear skies and calm seas. During the southwest monsoon, from roughly May to October, stronger winds and occasional storms reshape parts of the shoreline. Although the Gulf of Thailand is generally more sheltered than the Andaman Sea, nature is never truly still. Every tide, every wave, and every storm leaves its subtle mark upon the coast. The tides themselves may appear gentle, yet they quietly transform the beaches throughout the day. In the early morning, broad stretches of firm sand emerge, creating ideal conditions for long walks, horseback rides, and local fishermen preparing their boats. As the sea slowly returns, the shoreline changes once again, reminding us that no beach is ever exactly the same twice. This coastline is also home to an ecosystem that often goes unnoticed. Tiny ghost crabs disappear into the sand within seconds. Sandpipers search for food at the water's edge, while offshore, coral communities and seagrass beds provide shelter for countless marine species. Even the smallest movement along the shore plays a role in maintaining this delicate balance. Perhaps that is the greatest beauty of Hua Hin's coastline. It is not a landscape shaped by spectacular cliffs or towering waves. Instead, it is defined by subtlety. A coastline where geology, climate, wildlife, and human history have evolved together over centuries, creating beaches that reveal their character not all at once, but gradually, to those willing to slow down and truly observe. Hua Hin Beach. The beach that changed Thailand. If there is one beach that tells the story of Hua Hin, it is this one. Stretching for nearly 4 kilometers along the heart of the town, Hua Hin Beach is more than just a place to swim or relax beneath the tropical sun. It is the shoreline where a quiet fishing village gradually became one of Thailand's most treasured seaside destinations. More than a century ago, this beach looked remarkably different. There were no luxury resorts, no beachfront cafes, and no rows of sun lounges facing the sea. Instead, fishermen pulled their wooden boats onto the sand after long mornings on the Gulf of Thailand. Nets were repaired beneath the shade of trees, children played along the shoreline, and life followed the rhythm of the tides. Then, in the early 20th century, everything began to change. The arrival of the Southern Railway made Hua Hin accessible from Bangkok, opening this once remote coastline to a new generation of visitors. When members of Thailand's royal family discovered the peaceful atmosphere and refreshing sea breeze, Hua Hin's future was transformed forever. It was this very beach that became the symbol of Thailand's first royal seaside resort. Unlike many modern tourist destinations that developed rapidly, Hua Hin grew gradually and retained much of its original character. Even today, traditional fishing boats can still be seen resting on the sand just a short walk from elegant hotels and historic landmarks, a rare contrast that has become one of Hua Hin's defining features. But perhaps the most magical time to experience Hua Hin Beach is not during the busy afternoon. It is at sunrise. Long before the cafes begin serving breakfast, the beach belongs to local residents. Joggers follow the firm sand left behind by the retreating tide. Fishermen prepare their boats for another day at sea. The first rays of sunlight paint the sky in shades of gold, orange, and soft pink, while the calm waters of the Gulf reflect the changing colors like a mirror. The atmosphere is peaceful, unhurried, almost timeless. It is during these early hours that one of Hua Hin's most recognizable traditions comes to life. Along the shoreline, horses walk slowly across the sand, carrying visitors beneath the morning sun. Horse riding has been part of Hua Hin's identity for decades and remains one of the town's most iconic experiences. For many travelers, seeing horses against the backdrop of the Gulf of Thailand has become an image that instantly evokes Hua Hin itself. Yet behind this charming tradition lies a practical reason. The beach is exceptionally wide at low tide, and the firm, compact sand creates ideal conditions for horses to move comfortably along the shoreline. Few beaches in Thailand offer such naturally suitable terrain, making this experience unique to Hua Hin. Looking inland, another chapter of the town's history becomes visible. Luxury hotels line parts of the beachfront, continuing a tradition that began nearly a century ago with the construction of the historic railway hotel, known today as the Centara Grand Beach Resort. Its colonial architecture reflects an era when Hua Hin became the preferred coastal retreat of Thailand's elite, welcoming royalty, diplomats, and travelers seeking elegance rather than extravagance. Despite this development, Hua Hin Beach has never completely lost its connection to the sea. Local fishermen still launch their boats from nearby stretches of sand, often returning with fresh catches that will appear in restaurants and markets later the same day. Their presence serves as a quiet reminder that tourism did not replace Hua Hin's original identity, it simply became another chapter in its story. Perhaps this is why Hua Hin Beach feels different from so many other tropical destinations. It is not famous for towering limestone cliffs or dazzling turquoise water. Its beauty is more understated. It lies in the harmony between past and present, between fishermen and luxury resorts, between royal history and everyday life, between sunrise silence and the gentle rhythm of the Gulf of Thailand. And it is this balance that has made Hua Hin Beach one of the most enduring and beloved coastlines in the Kingdom of Thailand. Khao Takiab Beach, where the mountain meets the sea. As we leave the historic shoreline of Hua Hin behind and continue south, the coastline begins to change. The long, uninterrupted beach gradually narrows. In the distance, a rocky hill rises from the sea, breaking the flat horizon that has defined the landscape until now. This is Khao Takiab. Known to many as Monkey Mountain, it is one of Hua Hin's most recognizable landmarks. But long before visitors came here to photograph monkeys or admire panoramic views, this headland was already shaping the coastline itself. Rising more than 270 meters above sea level, Khao Takiab is a granite hill that has stood here for millions of years. While waves slowly reshaped the surrounding beaches, the mountain remained, acting as a natural barrier against wind, currents, and storms. Even today, it influences the movement of sand along the coast, creating a shoreline that feels noticeably different from Hua Hin Beach. The sea becomes calmer. The atmosphere grows quieter. And nature begins to take the lead. Looking toward the summit, golden rooftops emerge from the trees. At the top of the hill stands what Khao Takiab, a Buddhist temple overlooking the Gulf of Thailand. For generations, monks have climbed these steps each morning, while local residents have come here to make offerings, seek blessings, and watch the sunrise over the sea. From above, the view tells the story of Hua Hin better than almost anywhere else. To the north, the coastline stretches seemingly without end, revealing the beaches we have just explored. To the south, smaller bays and forested hills hint at a quieter landscape still waiting to be discovered. Yet Khao Takiab is perhaps best known for its most famous residents. Hundreds of long-tailed macaques live on the hillside, moving freely between rocks, trees, and temple grounds. For many visitors, encountering these monkeys becomes an unforgettable experience. But they are not simply an attraction. They are wild animals. Over the years, the monkeys have become accustomed to human presence, and while they often appear playful, they remain unpredictable. Local authorities regularly remind visitors not to feed them, not only for human safety but also for the health of the animals themselves. Responsible tourism means allowing wildlife to remain wild. Down on the beach, the atmosphere changes once again. Fishing boats rest beside colorful nets drying in the sun. Small seafood restaurants overlook the water, serving the day's catch only hours after it leaves the sea. Unlike the busier central beach, life here moves at a slower rhythm. Local families gather beneath the shade of trees, children search for shells in the sand, and fishermen quietly prepare for another evening on the Gulf. One of the most striking moments comes as the tide begins to fall. The retreating water reveals wide stretches of firm sand beneath the cliffs, while the granite rocks at the base of the mountain become home to tiny crabs, seashells, and marine life hidden only moments before beneath the waves. It is a reminder that this coastline is constantly changing, shaped not only by history, but by nature itself. Khao Takiab is more than a beautiful beach. It is the place where geology, spirituality, wildlife, and local tradition come together in a single landscape. Here, the mountain does not simply overlook the sea. It has been shaping its story for millions of years. Suan Son Beach. The beach hidden in plain sight. Just a few kilometers south of Khao Takiab, something unexpected happens. The cafes disappear. The crowds grow quieter. The beachfront hotels slowly give way to open spaces and long rows of trees. For many visitors, it almost feels as though they have left Hua Hin behind. Welcome to Suan Son Beach, one of the longest, quietest, and most overlooked stretches of coastline in the region. At first glance, this seems almost impossible. The beach is wide. The sand is soft beneath your feet. The sea remains calm for much of the year. And unlike many popular beaches in Thailand, there is often enough space to walk for hundreds of meters without meeting another person. So why is it so quiet? The answer lies just beyond the trees. Much of the land behind Suan Son Beach has long been under the administration of the Royal Thai Army. For decades, access to parts of the area remained more limited than elsewhere along the coast. Large-scale commercial development never arrived, and the endless rows of hotels, bars, and entertainment venues found in other beach destinations simply never appeared. Ironically, what once limited tourism has become one of Suan Son's greatest strengths. Today, visitors discover a coastline that still feels remarkably natural. There is another reason why this beach feels different. The name Suan Son literally means pine garden. Although these are not true pine trees, the coastline is lined with thousands of casuarina trees, a species well adapted to sandy soils, salty air, and strong coastal winds. Their tall, graceful silhouettes define the landscape. As the sea breeze moves through their fine, needle-like branches, they produce a soft whispering sound unlike any other tree along Thailand's coastline. On hot afternoons, their shade offers a welcome escape from the tropical sun, creating peaceful places where local families gather for picnics and quiet afternoons by the sea. These trees do far more than provide beauty. Their extensive root systems help stabilize the sand, reducing coastal erosion and protecting the fragile shoreline during seasonal storms. They also provide shelter for birds, insects, and countless small coastal species that depend on this unique habitat. Nature remains the true architect here. Looking across the beach, there are no towering hotel skylines dominating the horizon. Instead, the rhythm is set by wind moving through the trees, waves rolling gently onto the shore, and the distant calls of seabirds searching the water's edge. Even the pace of life feels different. Cyclists follow quiet coastal roads beneath the shade of the casuarinas. Fishermen occasionally prepare small boats for the evening tide. Children collect shells while families enjoy simple meals beneath the trees. It is a place that asks for nothing except time. Perhaps that is why Suan Son Beach remains one of Hua Hin's best-kept secrets. It offers something increasingly rare in modern travel: silence, space, and the opportunity to experience Thailand's coastline much as it existed before mass tourism transformed so many of the country's famous beaches. Sometimes, the places that receive the least attention are the ones that leave the deepest impression. Suan Son is one of those places. Sai Noi Beach, the hidden bay between the hillside. As we continue further south, the coastline changes once again. The long, open beaches that have accompanied us for much of our journey begin to disappear. The horizon narrows. Rocky hills move closer to the sea, and the landscape becomes more intimate. Then, almost without warning, the road bends, and a small bay quietly reveals itself. This is Sai Noi Beach. Unlike the broad shores of Hua Hin or Suan Son, Sai Noi is enclosed by nature. Low granite headlands embrace the bay from both sides, creating a sheltered stretch of sand that feels almost hidden from the outside world. It is not the largest beach. It is not the most famous. Yet for many who discover it, it becomes the most memorable. The reason lies in its geography. The rocky formations surrounding the bay act as natural breakwaters, reducing the force of incoming waves and protecting the beach from stronger coastal currents. Over thousands of years, this sheltered environment allowed fine sand to accumulate, while the surrounding hills created a landscape unlike anywhere else along Hua Hin's coastline. Standing here, it is easy to understand why this place feels different. The sounds are softer. The sea appears calmer. Even the wind seems to slow as it reaches the protected bay. Looking beneath the clear water near the rocks, small fish move between submerged stones, while crabs disappear into narrow crevices carved by countless tides. These rocky edges create habitats that simply do not exist along the long sandy beaches further north, supporting a richer variety of marine life within only a few meters of the shore. Yet Sai Noi is not only a place shaped by geology. It is also shaped by atmosphere. visitors come here for a different reason. There are no bustling promenades, no endless rows of beach vendors, and no feeling of urgency. Instead, the beach invites people to slow down. Some arrive early in the morning, when the bay is illuminated by soft golden light and the sea is almost perfectly still. Others remain until late afternoon, watching the sunlight gradually move across the surrounding hills before disappearing behind them. For photographers, this changing light creates an ever-shifting landscape. Every hour transforms the colors of the rocks, the reflections on the water, and the shadows stretching across the sand. It is a place where patience is rewarded. Perhaps that is why Sai Noi has never become one of Thailand's major beach destinations. It offers something that is increasingly difficult to find: a sense of discovery. There is no dramatic entrance, no famous landmark announcing your arrival. The bay simply appears, quietly waiting behind the hills, as it has for generations. In many ways, Sai Noi reminds us that the most remarkable places are not always the largest or the most celebrated. Sometimes, they are the ones hidden just beyond the next curve in the road. And sometimes, they are remembered long after the journey has ended. Khao Tao Beach, where sea, lake, and village become one. As our journey continues further south, the landscape begins to change in a way few visitors expect. The coastline grows quieter. The beaches become less familiar. And beyond the next headland lies a place where the sea is only part of the story. Welcome to Khao Tao. While many travelers know Hua Hin for its long sandy beaches, Khao Tao offers something far more unusual: a landscape where the Gulf of Thailand, a freshwater lake, rolling hills, and a traditional fishing village exist within walking distance of one another. It is this rare combination that gives Khao Tao its distinctive character. Long before tourism reached this part of the coast, the village depended almost entirely on the sea. For generations, local fishermen launched their small wooden boats before sunrise, navigating the calm waters of the Gulf in search of squid, mackerel, and other seasonal catches. Their knowledge of tides, winds, and weather was passed from one generation to the next, forming a way of life deeply connected to the rhythms of nature. Even today, traces of that heritage remain. Colorful fishing boats rest quietly along the shoreline. Nets hang outside family homes to dry beneath the tropical sun. In the early morning, it is not unusual to see fishermen preparing their equipment while the village slowly awakens around them. Yet the sea is only one half of Khao Tao's identity. Just a short distance inland lies Khao Tao Reservoir, a peaceful freshwater lake surrounded by hills and tropical vegetation. Created in the early 20th century as part of a royal initiative to improve water management in the region, the reservoir continues to support local communities today while adding an unexpected contrast to the coastal landscape. Few places along Thailand's coastline offer such a close relationship between fresh water and the sea. It is a reminder that the story of a coastal village is not written by the ocean alone. Watching over both the village and the lake is Wat Tham Khao Tao, one of the area's most peaceful temples. Built into the hillside, the temple combines caves, shrines, and terraces that overlook both the Gulf of Thailand and the reservoir. From its elevated viewpoints, visitors can appreciate something that is not immediately visible from the beach below: the remarkable geography that has shaped this entire region. Here, spirituality and landscape seem inseparable. The sound of temple bells drifts gently across the hillside. Monks move quietly between prayer halls. Incense rises into the warm tropical air, while beyond the trees, the sea continues its timeless rhythm. It is a place of reflection, not only for those who come to pray, but also for travelers seeking a deeper connection with the places they visit. Unlike the livelier beaches closer to central Hua Hin, Khao Tao has never tried to compete for attention. There are no towering resorts dominating the shoreline. No crowded promenades. No urgency. Instead, life unfolds at a gentler pace, where fishing traditions, quiet beaches, sacred spaces, and everyday village life continue to coexist much as they have for decades. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson Khao Tao has to offer. Sometimes the true character of a coastline is not found where the crowds gather. It is found in the villages where people still greet the sunrise before the tourists arrive. Where the sea provides a living, the hills offer perspective, and a quiet lake reflects a landscape that has never forgotten its roots. Khao Tao is not simply another stop along the coast. It is a reminder that every shoreline tells more than one story. Nature, the living coast. Throughout our journey, we have explored beaches shaped by history, villages shaped by tradition, and landscapes formed over millions of years. But beyond everything we have seen lies another story. One that is easy to overlook. Because this coastline is not simply a place where people come to relax. It is home to an extraordinary living ecosystem, where every tide, every grain of sand, and every wave supports countless forms of life. At first glance, the beach may appear almost empty. Yet with a little patience, an entirely different world begins to emerge. Tiny ghost crabs race across the sand with astonishing speed, disappearing into perfectly round burrows before they can be seen for more than a few seconds. Their presence is one of the clearest signs of a healthy shoreline. By feeding on organic material washed ashore, they help recycle nutrients and keep the beach clean, becoming an essential part of the coastal food web. Along the water's edge, another group of visitors arrives with the changing tide. Sandpipers, plovers, egrets, and herons patiently search the wet sand for small crabs, worms, and shellfish hidden beneath the surface. Many of these birds travel thousands of kilometers each year along the East Asian Australasian Flyway, one of the world's great migratory bird routes. For them, coastlines like Hua Hin are not simply beautiful places. They are vital resting and feeding grounds during an extraordinary journey that spans continents. Looking down, the sand itself reveals countless treasures. Tiny shells, fragments of coral carried by currents, and delicate spiral homes once occupied by marine creatures are scattered along the shoreline. Each one tells a story of life beneath the waves, where countless organisms contribute to an ecosystem far more complex than most visitors ever imagine. Yet perhaps the greatest artist along this coast is the tide itself. Twice each day, the sea slowly advances and retreats, constantly reshaping the shoreline. During low tide, broad expanses of firm sand emerge, exposing feeding grounds for birds and creating temporary habitats for crabs and countless microscopic organisms. As the water returns, these traces disappear beneath the waves, beginning the cycle once again. This endless rhythm has continued for thousands of years. It shapes not only the beaches, but life itself. One question often surprises visitors. Why does the sea here feel so different from the beaches on Thailand's Andaman coast? The answer lies in geography. Hua Hin faces the Gulf of Thailand, a broad, shallow basin sheltered by the Malay Peninsula and the surrounding coastline. Because the Gulf is relatively enclosed, waves generally travel shorter distances before reaching the shore. They lose much of the power seen along Thailand's western coast, where the open Andaman Sea receives long ocean swells traveling across the Indian Ocean. The result is a completely different coastal environment. Here, the water is usually calmer. The beaches are broader. Fine sand has had centuries to settle. Families can often enjoy gentle swimming conditions, while fishermen benefit from seas that are more predictable throughout much of the year. Yet calm does not mean lifeless. Beneath the surface, seagrass meadows provide shelter for juvenile fish, crabs, and countless marine invertebrates. These underwater habitats serve as natural nurseries, supporting species that later spread throughout the Gulf of Thailand. Even where they remain hidden from view, they are among the most important ecosystems along the coast. Every shell, every bird, every crab disappearing beneath the sand, every wave washing gently onto the shore. They are all connected. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson these beaches have to teach. A coastline is never simply a destination. It is a living system where geology, climate, wildlife, and human history exist in delicate balance. And once you begin to notice that balance, you never see the beach in quite the same way again. Best time to visit: when the coast reveals its different faces. By now, one thing has become clear. Hua Hin's beaches are never exactly the same from one hour to the next. Light changes. The tide rises and falls. The wind shifts. Even the mood of the coastline transforms throughout the day. Choosing the best time to visit is not simply about the weather. It depends on the experience you are looking for. For many locals, the day begins before sunrise. As the first light reaches the Gulf of Thailand, the beaches belong almost entirely to the people who call this coastline home. Fishermen prepare their boats. From May to October, the southwest monsoon brings a different atmosphere. Rain showers become more frequent, skies grow more dramatic, and the landscape turns an even deeper shade of green. Storm clouds occasionally gather over the Gulf before giving way to bursts of sunshine, creating some of the most spectacular light of the entire year. While heavy rain can sometimes interrupt outdoor plans, it rarely lasts all day. Between the showers, the beaches often become quieter, the air feels refreshed, and photographers are rewarded with powerful skies that transform familiar landscapes into something entirely new. Perhaps there is no single perfect time to visit Hua Hin. Every season tells a different chapter. Every sunrise begins a new story. Every sunset brings another gently to a close. The coastline never asks us to hurry. It simply asks us to notice. And those who take the time to do so often discover that the most beautiful moments are not planned at all. They simply arrive, like the tide. Where every journey begins. Our journey along Hua Hin's coastline now comes to an end. We have walked across beaches shaped by ancient tides, stood beneath granite hills that have watched over the Gulf for millions of years, followed the footsteps of fishermen who still greet the sunrise before the town awakens, and discovered quiet places where nature continues to set the rhythm of everyday life. Along the way, we found more than beautiful landscapes. We found stories. Stories written not only by people, but by wind, water, stone, and time itself. Perhaps that is the greatest lesson these beaches have to offer. A coastline is never simply a line where land meets the sea. It is where history meets the present. Where nature shapes culture. And where every generation leaves behind a small part of its own story. It is easy to visit a beach. It is much harder to truly see one. Because once we begin to notice the details, the changing tides, the quiet work of fishermen, the whisper of the casuarina trees, the birds crossing continents, the mountains standing watch over the sea, we realize that every place has been telling its story all along. We simply needed to slow down long enough to hear it. As the sun slowly disappears beyond the horizon, the coastline returns once more to silence. Tomorrow morning, the waves will smooth away today's footprints. New visitors will arrive. Fishermen will launch their boats again. The tide will rise and fall, just as it always has. And the story of Hua Hin's beaches will quietly continue. But our journey through Hua Hin is only just beginning. Wherever your own journey takes you, may you find places that invite you not only to look, but to truly see. Because the greatest destinations are not always the ones we remember for their beauty. They are the ones that quietly change the way we see the world.